Good evening. This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting for January 9th, 2023. I'll open the meeting and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Clerk, would you run us through our agenda for the
Absolutely.
evening?
For Mr. Chair, we have a public hearing, a couple of appointments, and then some action items.
Great. All right. Well, let's start at 6:30. We have our first appointment. If you want to read the hearing notice.
Jim, notice is hereby given that pursuant to the requirements of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, a public hearing will be held relative to the transfer of license, change of manager, pledge of collateral, and pledge of inventory, all alcoholic license as follows. Robert Luden, doing business as Joppa Market. Robert Luden, manager. 2, bear with me on this, Shasandara Corporation, doing business as Joppa Market. Basha Patel, manager, premises 626 Bedford Street. Public hearing will be held at the Town Hall, first floor conference room, 175 Central Street, East Bridgewater, Mass., January 9th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Peter Spagone Jr., Dale Julius, David Sheedy, Board of Selectmen, Licensing Authority.
Did call you Dale. It's okay. All right, yeah, come on up.
You know, you can drag more chairs up to the
grab
table.
a couple of,
Right.
good evening.
Good evening.
So let us know who everybody is here, so we've got a
Sure.
idea.
I am Attorney John Meridian, Democracy Law Offices. With me is Rakesh Patel, his son Smit Patel, and Rakesh's wife Varsha Patel.
Okay.
Naresh Kumar Patel is his brother. He's not available tonight. He's traveling. So.
Okay.
Tonight we're seeking approval of transfer of the annual, it's actually a beer and wine license, not an all alcohol license, from Robert London to Shyam Sundar Corporation, DBA Joppa Market. It's simply a business transaction, new ownership coming in to buy the convenience store that has a beer and wine license over at 626 Bedford Street. Varsha here will be the manager of record. And we're seeking approval of pledge of the collateral and the license to Rutland Trust Company as they're financing the transaction. Rakesh and his family own a few stores in the South Shore area for over 18, 20 years. Varsha will be the manager of record. She's tip certified. Their employees will be tip certified, and they will use an ID scanner to assist in combating underage sales. We're seeking approval of the transfer of the license as well as the common victual license. It's going to be the same operation, convenience store, groceries, grab-and-go items, as well as beer and wine.
Great.
Any questions you may have about that, I'll welcome them.
We start with Charlie. Charlie, you have anything?
No, the first question would be what past experience, and you've already answered it.
Right.
And where are the other stores located at the?
Yeah, we have Abington, right on Route 18.
Oh, yeah.
They call Stone before. Right now we call Route 18 Superstore. We have one store in a Bridgewater next to the college. Before Tedeschi, but now they have Mary Louise inside, and we call Bridgemart. We have in Hanover, right on 123, and we have one in Stoughton.
Okay, great.
Great, yeah. Well, welcome to East Bridgewater.
Thank you.
You are successful here, as you have in the other places. I did speak to Mr. Lundin, and he praises pretty high, so that's always a good sign. Carol, do you have anything you wanted to?
No, looks like the paperwork's all in order, so I think it's just a formality.
All right, motion?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Well,
We have
if there's anybody else.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know if there's, didn't look like anyone here for the public hearing.
Nope.
Not looking.
Oh, wait.
Oh, we do. Yep. Oh, no, I meant you have a comment or a concern? No? You're good. Okay. All right, so
Make a
good.
motion, we close the public hearing.
Second?
Second's made. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This time I'll make a motion that we approve the transfer of the all alcohol license beer and wine from Robert London, Joppa Market, to Sundara Corporation, do business Joppa Market, effective immediately.
Second.
Okay, motion made second. Seeing no further comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so our next hearing isn't until, what, 10 minutes? 6:45? So you want to go through a couple of the
Well, you have
action
open
items?
forum.
Is that,
You have open forum,
Open forum.
if you want to do that at the beginning.
okay, yeah, that's true, I didn't do that one, right? Is anyone here for open forum?
It is that.
Seeing none, yeah, that's usually the case, that's why I probably skipped right
Not a
through
time filler.
it. Didn't work. All right, so seeing nobody here, I'll close the open forum and we can go to the action.
Okay, we've already done action item 1.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of December 12th, 2022 Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Second.
Motion's made second, seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve but not release minutes of December 12th, 2022 Board of Selectmen's executive session meeting.
Second.
Motion made second, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the resignation of Joe Conley from the Finance Committee effective January 9th, 2023.
Second.
All right, second is made, discussion?
No, I just want to thank Joe for his time on the Finance Committee, and we'll probably see him back in the future.
I hope so. All right, seeing that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to discuss at this point street lighting for Browns Lane, Cedar Mill Drive, pole number 4.
This was for the taking over of that pole. The chiefs and the DPW have agreed that it'd be a good idea if the residents no longer going to be paying for that, that it's a location that would be appropriate for the town to take over the costs.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I don't have any problem. I
No.
know John's here too. You had some discussion regarding that as well, or?
I've done a quick visual, actually been out at night, but I think, the police chiefs.
Yep.
It's on a corner, so it's definitely a good place for people.
Okay. All right. Do we need to put that into a motion?
Motion to approve the lighting for the corner of Browns Lane and Cedar Mill Drive, pole number 4.
Did they notice, is that an LED converted one already, or?
I think it's going to be.
Going to be converted.
They haven't converted any of the ones that are privately paid.
All right, motion's been made.
Second.
Second. Seeing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to review and possibly go to surplus 1 camera tripod Manfrotto, model number 3274.
Second.
Discussion?
It's from, this is, yeah, from EBCAM. It's 16 years old, so out of age and ready to be disposed of.
It's gone, it doesn't work anymore.
All right, we'll take it.
Scott, it doesn't work anymore, that's good enough for the board, I think.
All right, doesn't work. Oh.
Make a motion, we authorize to surplus the camera tripod Manfrotto, model number 3274.
Second.
Okay, motion made second. Any further discussion? Got camera 3274. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Like, get smart.
Chairman, a motion to discuss Center at Sachem Rock policies used during holidays, specific holidays, pay rates for Sundays and holidays and so on.
This had come up because there had been requests to use the center on a holiday. And right now, the current policy the board had instituted several years ago is for the center not be open during holidays. And my understanding is that because of pay rates, essentially we would have to pay more for, and mind you, the person who's renting the hall pays for those employees. It's not through the town's funds, whether it's a time or time and a half, but the policy has been on holidays. One of the questions that all came up and attached to that was whether we're considering only holidays on the day they are. So for instance, this year, January 1st was on Sunday, so it was New Year's Day on Sunday, and we'd be closed. But we observed, the building, for instance, was closed on January 2nd in observance of New Year's Day. So whether we're extending that idea of closing on holidays for both the actual day the holiday is on and days when the holiday might be observed. What I did do also, I checked with John Clifford, who said that given the mishmash that we have for laws and regulations in Massachusetts concerning pay rates during holidays and on Sundays, that the safest course for the town is, in fact, if we do have the building open on a Sunday or a holiday, and I know we don't have it for holiday now, but for Sundays, is to pay time and a half to the staff that is there. This isn't the Council on Aging staff, this is staff specifically for the events that are open there. So I guess there were a few questions asked. One is whether the holidays extend to the days observed, whether the, have a confirmation from the board that we would pay time and a half if we were open on Sundays or holidays. And then the third is whether the board wanted to consider revising the policy to allow for the building to be open on holidays.
I'd like to, at this time, take this under advisement for further review, just for a few different things. Okay, because, right, I mean, currently the policy is a lot of our functions, probably half our functions, are on Sundays. We've never had, because of the policy, a function down there on a holiday or a holiday being observed on a different day. And I'd rather hold that off for further consideration at a later time.
Yeah, no problem.
Pass it over for now.
Yep, and I think the other thing would be just to get a little better understanding of what are they, how many functions are they?
A lot.
Are they? Yeah.
On the weekends, sure.
Yeah, weekends is most of their
Sundays,
functions.
right?
A lot of them are on Sundays,
Okay.
and we've never get into the time and a half on
Right.
Sundays.
Right, like showers
wanna
and,
open it.
yeah,
We have
parties and
showers, we
stuff.
have weddings.
But as it stands right now, if someone wanted to book it for a holiday, like say somebody wanted to book it for the 4th of July to have an event,
The answer is no.
the answer is no.
Correct.
Okay.
And this is the only time, I believe it was New Year's Day, this is the only time since the center's been open, which is 10 years now, that we've had a request for a holiday, so I'm not too sure we should be changing it.
Somebody wanted to have an event on New
On New
Year's
Year's
Day?
Day, yes.
right.
Okay, and we said no.
Because the policy says
Okay.
no. And they just changed the date, I believe.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I think we need to look at that a little more closely.
We'll bring it back, you know, if the board's ready on the 23rd, we'll bring it back then. If not, we'll just carry it over.
Yeah, maybe someone
when
from
the
the,
board's ready.
is it still Diane?
Yeah.
Walkle?
Right.
I mean, her presence might be helpful.
But the problem is, we don't want to do it for the individual.
Right.
We want to do
Right.
it for whoever is running the function.
Yeah, you want to be
future.
careful of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Because what we have now may not be the next person that takes over that function.
true, yep. But still a background would be
Right.
good too, for
Yeah.
someone at least down there, you know? Give us an idea what the hell's going on.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right,
All right, Mr. Gardner's here.
yeah. Let's do the vehicle policy real quick and then we'll.
This is an update on a policy that the board approved in 2018, which was from text that was, Myos had supplied back in 2016. Mass Interlocal Insurance Association's Maya. They had updated it slightly in 2022. Really, the only significant change is that if someone's driving one of our town vehicles, that if they're in an accident, take as many photos as possible. There were some grammar things and things like that, because what happened is that when the town voted it, or the board voted in 18, it took it literally from Maya, and Maya had sort of some options, you know, town manager or town administrator, or city or town. I just updated to make sure it's specifically to the town, East Bridgewater. It's not a more general, you know, policy.
Okay, so they've made that change to the policy just to add in,
That drivers should, if possible, take photographs if they're at the scene of an accident.
okay,
They're involved in an accident with another vehicle.
right. All right,
We need a motion to,
Yes.
okay, I make a motion that we use the updated, and just pass on to anyone that's driving in a town vehicle to take as many photos as possible if you're in an accident.
Second.
okay, just made second. Discussion, so yeah, I mean, obviously we'll have to put out some sort of information to the departments as well to get them up. And there may be questions that arise here too, so we
It's,
probably.
like I said, it's not, we'll answer them as they go along. but
Right.
The policy itself, it's about 99.5% the same policy as the board voted 5 years ago.
Right, But I'm gonna take a slight guess here that they probably haven't seen the first policy.
Probably, that's very likely.
Right? So what the hell
We'll,
they're
we'll
doing.
make sure, I'll make sure it
We
gets,
voted on it.
I'll make sure it gets distributed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sounds
no,
good.
I remember it clearly.
Do you?
Oh, yeah, great.
Sounds good.
Page 4 especially.
Paragraph
Page
7.
9.
Thank you, Charlie. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's move into our next appointment. Mr. Clerk, if you want to.
It's 6:45 appointment with Roy Gardner, Plan Board regarding T.J. Smith's possible rezone of 13 Cross Street.
Mr. Gardner's with us, and T.J. Smith representatives are here as well. So come on up, Roy. Did you bring some artwork with you as well there, Roy?
In front of you.
Roy may have a different version from a different artist than I do. I did cut and paste the area at least, so.
Yeah. I was talking about the pictures.
Oh,
Lots of art.
Yeah, so in our track meeting, the Smith brothers had come to us and asked about a potential rezoning of the site where the function hall is,
Mhm.
at the corner across in Central Street. So, to keep it short, we can't rezone a single parcel of land under current state law in terms of zoning. We have to have it as part of, or close to being part of our master plan that fits into the zoning in an integrated form. So after looking at it and after discussing it with the track group, it appears that the best way to do that would be to expand the existing R3 district, which is directly abutting, or almost directly abutting that property, and bring it out to the middle of Central Street and include the land on Cross Street, which would include the Smith property.
so push the R3 north along Cross Street to hit Central Street to
Yes.
include the Smith property.
So currently, they're in what? They're in
A special B3 district.
Yeah,
special B3, okay.
against advice when we rezoned this
Other
back in '87,
Yep.
because of both the owners of the Smith property and the owners of what I've always called the car barn, which is the large
Brick building.
garage, if you will, on the opposite side.
Yep.
Those owners didn't want to be rezoned R1, which we were looking at then. They also didn't want to be rezoned to a different residential zone, even though they would have been protected under zoning.
Okay.
They would have been officially grandfathered indefinitely as long as the business was there. And the fact that we recognized in '87, when a two-thirds zoning vote is needed to pass, that we wanted to avoid having anything that could potentially come up as a problem on town meeting floor. So we went ahead and we zoned it B3.
Right.
Now, the Smiths talked to us at fairly good length at the track meeting. Their feeling is, and I have to agree with them, seeing what's going on in the business world today, that the likelihood of their business coming back to any significant amount after COVID is extremely poor. All those venues are having extreme difficulty these days, in part because they can't get help, in part because they can't book functions, and it just, so they've suggested that it be rezoned to R3. It would make sense there was already several houses on Central Street that are multifamily. I mean, they've been multifamily for many, many decades.
Yep.
Since before I was on the planning board, which probably dates back 40 or 50 years, so.
At least.
They would fit into that category, and I don't think there'd be any issues there.
Yep.
There are some smaller homes on Ashley Drive and one or two houses on Cross Street that would fall into this area, but
Sure. Now, refresh my memory here. So the R3, what kind of opportunity does it give them for resale, too, of that business? Let's say that there was going to be something there. Is it a little bit more open in the residential than say, your R2 typically, or?
I think R3 would allow multifamily housing. They put in the extra land that's there. Exactly what would happen to the building, I think would, I honestly believe it would have to be sold at some point to a developer who would make a determination if they could modify that building into multiple units, or
Okay.
whether they would, consider knocking it down.
Right.
And I don't want to get into any of the historical issues around buildings in town, because that belongs to a different department. But,
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
renovating older buildings, and not all of that is really that old, but from my experience myself, renovating older buildings that date back a while can be extremely difficult.
sure. So we would extend, as Charlie said, from where the current R3 is, all the way up past the,
That property.
right, but he's still, like he said, he's got
Right.
a little bit of residential on Ashley Drive.
Yeah,
and
let me
whatnot.
take a look at this one. This one may be a little bit easier to.
Okay,
Okay.
right. All right, so this is the
That's the one,
current
that
proposed area
that one's
right
in the
there.
packet.
Yep, all right.
So it would pick up on the corner where the existing R3 is, bring it along, basically straight up to Central Street to the back corner of the Smith property, and then along the back line of the Smith property out to Central Street.
Yep. Yep.
So
And,
it would make a fully integrated R3 district at that point.
right. And I'm assuming this still has to go to town meeting and
Yes.
be approved.
So the next step, which we've already started, the wheels churning, is the planning board is going to propose this based on the request from the Smiths as a zoning change.
Yep.
Authored by the planning board. We'll schedule our public hearings that we have to have so that we can then vote to make a recommendation to town meeting.
Mhm.
As I always say, I'm one of 7 people up there, so I don't know where that would go. It's obviously up to the body to
Yeah.
decide what to do, but
Absolutely.
it
But
does seem to fit the master plan, and it does seem to
Yep.
fit the area pretty well.
And I wasn't at that track meeting, so I'm assuming that there was positive feedback from all the representatives.
I would say that, I mean, we didn't take any official vote,
No, I know.
obviously, but
Yeah.
it seemed to be pretty unanimous that that would be the way we should go.
Okay. And this was presented to you by Mr. Smith himself, so
The
I'm
Smith-
assuming he's on board.
Yes, the Smiths came to us and
Right.
asked about the potential of rezoning their land, and we tried to explain, or I tried to explain during the track meeting when they were there present with,
Yep,
that it has to be done as an integrated add to the existing zoning. We can't just take an individual.
right. There's a piece, like a spot zoning.
Spot
Yes.
zoning,
That's
yes.
correct, yeah. Yep. Fine.
I've been in conversation with the owners of the Smith property probably for 3 or 4 years now.
Yep.
And I know it's been advertised, and again, I know this is not what they've wanted all along, to change this, because it's historic, it was a schoolhouse and all the stuff that goes with it, but as Roy said, and as everyone, the venues just are not getting the business now, and no one ever thinks they're gonna come back in the very near future, so, this, as far as this property, this is the best thing, and, for the whole area, it's not really gonna affect anyone else.
Yep.
We may again, because it's such an old building and stuff like that, and, they had talked about other uses for it, the town buying it and using it for, a recreation, using it for a library, using it for all kinds of different things over the years, but it's just not something that ever came to fruition. But I think this is the best way for this to go, and let the planning board follow it through and bring it to a town meeting.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, obviously, if all parties agree upon the change for the zoning, then we support it as well. So, appreciate you bringing it forward. Really nothing we need to do at this
No.
point, I would assume, right?
We'll just, we'll support it when it,
Right.
goes.
So I think what we'll officially do is our first meeting in February, we'll have it on the table at the planning board. At that point, I think we'll vote when to schedule our, I assume we'll vote.
Yep.
When to schedule our public hearings, and at that point, we'll forward a letter down to the selectmen officially asking for a space on the warrant for an article. We'll have the language at that point.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you, Roy.
Thanks,
Okay,
Roy.
thank you.
Good luck, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the end of an era.
We can either wait or we can go, yeah, why don't we just go right into recreation?
Yeah, I don't think there's gonna be, it wasn't really an appointment as it was just a time slot.
Placeholder?
Right.
Placeholder. So, yeah, let's talk to Rec real fast, go through their project. I see Peter Furier as well as
We can
John
wake Peter up,
Shea.
he'll be all
Yeah,
set.
come on up, guys. Come on up, John Shea.
Good evening.
How you are?
So,
Always a pleasure, Peter.
Hello, sir. How are you?
so why don't you just, I know that, between the rec department and the committee members and of course, John Haynes and DPW, you guys have come up with a pretty solid plan for what we've been discussing for now 3 years, I guess, with, and
Say
maybe
it's been
longer.
Probably a little bit longer than 3
Church
years.
Street?
Is that all?
That's it,
You
right.
know, this
It's
is
really
government.
fast,
Probably
right.
closer to 5. but-
Moving right along.
So the good thing is there's some funding in place, which obviously is needed in order to advance the project and so forth. With your help through the state, and we were able to obtain a grant for, was it 55,000? And then the town was generous enough to provide some additional funding in order for the project to get some legs under it
Yep.
and so forth. So with that, Mr. Haynes and I met probably maybe 3 weeks ago and decided we were in a position where we thought we could actually start some form of action down there.
Right.
It's been well documented that the courts are in disrepair, they're hazardous. We've met 2 or 3 different contractors down there to give us, probably more than that now that I think about it. There are different opinions as to what could happen. We've gotten multiple quotes and so forth. At this point in time, we feel we've done our job, and we're certainly not professionals with regards to project management and those types of things. So I drafted up a letter asking the Department of Public Works to kind of take the lead on the project progression and so forth.
That being said, the project itself, I know, like I said, as you just said, we went through a couple of different
Yep.
angles of how we were going to proceed with that, from ripping up to replacing to the plastic or
Sure.
acrylic courts. So what was the end game, just for everyone? Not that I don't know, but what it wants you let us
For
know.
the many viewers at home.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
We're gonna tear up the existing courts and replace it with similar surface.
Okay.
So those courts have probably been in place for 30 years.
Yeah.
At least.
So the reason why we've decided to go that particular way was twofold. The plastic that would go over it, where we wouldn't have had to replace or remove the existing asphalt, that would take on the surface that it would be sitting upon. So there's a lot of potholing.
We're gonna go with some tried and true methodology.
Yeah. So
Replace what worked for 40 years,
Right.
hopefully get another 40 years out of
make
it.
it right.
Yeah.
I'll kind of, take it from here.
Right.
Since meeting with Peter and getting a little more scope of work narrowed down exactly, working with primarily the local contractors, we'll be able to get a lot of this work done.
Yep.
That we have really good working relationships with already that have done these kind of jobs for us on other surfaces and other locations in town. Where even right now, I've met with a local landscape contractor who's gonna be able to put together some conceptual imagery for us, some rendering, which I think is gonna help people a lot. When we get a visual of
Right.
what we're gonna do down there. And then we're gonna work with local paving contractors. At this point, we're moving towards, in the direction of literally removing the existing basketball courts and putting an entirely new asphalt surface in place, which will then have a rubberized
Surface.
acrylic surface
coating.
laid into it, lined
Yep.
with the color, and then the street hockey rink, as we know it, what we're looking to do is it's called a micro milling process, and we'll take off the top 3/4 of an inch to inch and put a new hot mix asphalt surface on top of that, and then a new rubberized, essentially latex rubber sealant surface that we can lay out in a number of different factors. That's actually, it's a whole new canvas, so we can, at that point, we've got a lot of different options of what we want to do, but we'll be able to restore the 4 basketball courts, the 2 full-size courts to, essentially better than existing condition.
Yep.
And then we have that entire new surface, kind of is kind of an open palette. There's a lot of discussion about some multi-use surfaces there, some different things. We're looking at the options of putting in some, they're called like return walls, so individuals, kids, athletes can use them for like kickback, whether one side will probably be on turf, which will allow for soccer, lacrosse, things like that. The other side will be essentially a freestanding wall that you'll be able to incorporate that multi-surface into tennis, paddleball, handball, basketball. Work on any kind of skills like that. Yeah, I have said, it's on the docket.
It's on there.
Maybe even shuffleboard.
There you go.
But
Yeah.
so it's gonna have a lot of options, and then once we get the surfaces restored, obviously, the next will be the installation, and this will all work in concert, actually, the installation of 4 new acrylic backboard basketball hoops. And then will be the next phase. We kind of prioritized what we felt
We could accomplish.
and would be priority will be lighting and LED conversion of the existing lighting that's there, trying to utilize what we have.
Right.
And restore that and upgrade it. And then generally some niceties,
Benches.
Yep, tables.
benches, tables,
Yeah.
things like that.
Cameras, security cameras.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's some infrastructure down there already, right?
Right,
So we
exactly.
be
We
able to
want to
utilize-
reutilize what we can.
Right, right. And then, I guess, I'm not gonna hold you to the fire here, but what are we looking at for a start date, hopefully, to?
Weather pending and assuming that we don't have that we have a workable spring.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see us in there at least doing the surface restorations when when the weather breaks in the spring, so it would be April, May.
Right.
Probably wait a little bit longer to put the acrylic latex surfacing on. So my hope would be you'd be able to play basketball down there by 4th of July.
Right.
Wow, great.
Yeah.
I'd like to see there be an opportunity for a summer league again. That would be a lot of
And
fun.
Your knowledge of the industry itself, you think what is it, about 95,000, I guess we've got as a starting point between the town's money and the grant, good enough to hopefully?
I think it's certainly gonna get us a good start on the actual restoration of the surface and, getting the space playable again. After that, the other things are what I consider upgrades.
Right.
So we can look at those afterwards. If we can add lighting, that'll be great. But, let's just get it back so
Yep.
kids and everybody can use the space again and play on the court safely.
Will I get a chance to coach you again in basketball, John?
You coach, I'll play.
Hopefully not.
And knowing that we had 95,000, we also went before the ARPA committee
Yep.
about the additional enhancements
Yep.
that John was talking about. And we feel that they're very open to providing that, hopefully presenting to the Board of Selectmen.
Yep. I think it'd be worthwhile even to talk to our first responders, Chief O'Brien and Chief Herron, just to see what their concerns are in that area too. I mean, I know that, I think you were talking to Sergeant, not Sergeant either, right? He's up, it's Jenkins now, he's the
Deputy Chief.
Deputy Chief, wow, jeez. Went up fairly quick on my list here as I go on. I think you spoke to him regarding some of the camera stuff and things of that nature as well, so I think having Jenks there would be very, very helpful. Great,
Yep,
yeah.
Looking forward to it.
yep.
Next discussion, when you come back, is a director, right? I mean, I'm hoping you put something in front of our town administrator here shortly for us to start to look at.
I like it.
All right, guys, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How's the softball tournament coming?
Slowly.
It's slow pitch, that's what you mean?
Slow pitch.
Moving right along, Mr. Chairman. We are looking at action item number 9 for ARPA request for the school department for snow throwers.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sit down.
Yeah, don't leave. I thought you were
Where
walking
you
out
going?
with PJs. All right, so there's been a lot of moving parts since we probably got the request put onto the opera, so short of you telling the story about driving my cold butt all over the place down there at the high school last Friday, why don't you just kind of give us a quick summary of that?
Yeah, I wrote down some notes. So, the school custodians are responsible for the, maintaining the sidewalks and the entrances of all the schools, during and after a snowstorm. DPW is responsible for the parking lots and, maintaining our snow removal equipment. We have, our major, piece of equipment is a 59-inch wide snow blower, which is attached to a tractor. The snow blower does the work of at least 3 custodians. It allows, I mean, if you look at our sidewalks, they go from, all the way from Route 18, all the way to 106. And they go up the hill here, they go all in front of the central school. That 59-inch snow blower is what gets us open the day after a snowstorm. Because if you can imagine, custodians walking behind a 25-inch snow blower, trying to clear a foot of snow on all our sidewalks, we won't open the next day after a snowstorm without it. That's pretty much it. I had, during the capital process, I had submitted a request for 2, they're called Mammoth snow blowers, Mammoth 850s. They're stand-on snow blowers. They're 4-wheel drive. They have a 36-inch snow blower attachment in front and a salt spreader in the back. That was during capital. I had requested that for a couple of reasons. I knew if that 59-inch ever broke down, we would have backup, which in this case, that 59-inch did break down.
Mm-hmm.
These 2 Mammoth snow blowers are quicker. They do the work of 2 people. They can clear snow and salt at the same time. And, you know, it's a liability issue. Last year we had 5 slip and falls down there at all our schools combined, you know, students, staff, community members. You know, we were lucky. None of them had a major injury, but you know, one bad slip and fall with a traumatic brain injury, and you're looking at some serious financial impact to the town. So that's right now that 59-inch snow blower is not working, and the 2 Mammoth snow blowers were not approved by capital, and right now I feel strongly about them, and I moved them, I presented them to the ARPA committee.
Right. Charlie, I know that there was some discussion between you and John and John Haynes as well. Do you want to just update your information?
I don't think there's anything more in the sense of that, you want to do as an efficient job with a 59-inch as possible, because you want as much area of snow removal as possible before school's gonna, or when you're gonna try and get school open. Having the 2 machines provide some redundancy, but then you need 2 people rather than 1 person handling, right?
Well, during a snowstorm, we call in our custodians, so they would
We only have so many.
They would be there anyway.
Right.
But rather than having, you know, 2 people with small, with the push ones, we could have 1 person
Right.
clearing snow with these.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to convert, if we were thinking of using ARPA money, and mind you, the likelihood of us getting a machine during this season is getting smaller.
Right.
We're already in January, I think it's John, it's anywhere, depending on the machine, a month and a half to 2
Yeah,
months to more
if I
now.
can follow
Yeah,
up
go
on
ahead,
that,
John.
Obviously. So I've been working on this issue, you know, we put, and I agree, the tractor-mounted snowblower is the most efficient way to clear the sidewalks at the schools. It's the reason we purchased the unit 10 years ago, and we've used it, and it's just used, it's beyond its extent, it's beyond its useful life. It can't be repaired anymore.
Yep.
The main bearings in the main shaft, what's happened is the way the piece of equipment gets utilized to try and clean some of the curves in the walkway and stuff. It's essentially the PTO shaft where it engages in from the tractor into the front of the blower is literally bent beyond the point that our mechanics can repair it. There's really nothing left to put back together. They've welded it back together and this and that, and got it through probably several years farther than, you know, it's probably 2 years beyond what its usable life was and needs to be replaced, but, you know, we keep extending stuff for trying to. But we knew that this was, you know, it had reached beyond its serviceable life.
Right.
So I have been trying to get this replaced, and I started this back in October, looking for a replacement. And again, I believe that's the most effective and efficient piece of equipment to use for their needs. The cost is about $13,000 just for the snowblower. That goes on the existing tractor we already have. The issue we have, and this is what, you know, the dialogue John and I have had with Charlie and this and that, is in the world we live in, we can't get that. And if I had ordered it in November, they were telling me it would be here in mid-March, and I have emails from the, you know, distributor. So, and at that point, to be honest, we're at the out front of the snow season with a lot of weather ahead of us. I couldn't see the purpose in expending the funds in November, knowing that it wasn't gonna be delivered till, at best, the end of mid-March. I'd prefer, at this point, to wait and order it so that, you know, we had a better sense of what our snow and ice expenditure was before we tried to move ahead and order it. Just for the reasons of, I never know what winter's gonna have in store. So to spend the better part of $15,000 in November on a piece of equipment I know I wouldn't get until essentially the snow season's almost over, I thought, let's hold off and we'll purchase it, you know, towards late March. Now, I understand, as with all of us, it essentially comes down to personnel. If we had 100 janitors, it would be nothing for them to all get a shovel and shovel, but, you know, we do have an alternative. It's not the best alternative, I will openly admit, but we do have 9 walk-behind snow blowers that we utilized before we had this other piece of equipment. We realized it was not the most efficient way to do it, which is why we bought the tractor-mounted one in the first place, but unfortunately, it's just the world we're in right now. You can't get things. It's just impossible to get these sort of these products in any kind of timely fashion, which is unfortunate, but it's reality.
Right.
So that's my, you know,
Yeah.
my thoughts is, you know, obviously DPW will assist, as we always have, with, you know, helping to get the walkways cleared. It won't be as efficient and
Well, I mean, we certainly understand the situation that we're in for the ordering of a piece of equipment. And it seems to me, unless I'm wrong, that whether it be 2 snow throwers or this piece of equipment, we're talking about the same amount of time roughly. I mean, it doesn't matter what you order, it's
to
pretty
my
tight.
knowledge, I don't think anybody has.
Right, well, let's just
anything
say that
to-
that's the case, right? So we can't get either one in a fashionable amount of time. But if we had our choice, and John, you let me know too, I mean, if you had your choice, you'd probably go back to the piece of equipment that goes on the machine we have currently right now.
Oh, yeah, we definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know, I'm gonna let you guys jump in as well, but I mean, I would think that, you know, we gotta get a piece of equipment. Where do we generally, a piece of equipment of that nature, of that cost, where does that generally come out of? Does it come out of the snow and removal budget? Does it come out of the school's budget, or, I mean, where the hell does it come from?
Would probably be more on the capital equipment.
Okay.
It's been brought in front of capital before and refused,
No,
Well-
the two snow blowers that I proposed was brought before capital.
okay.
I don't believe the 59-inch.
The
Right.
snow blower attachment has not been brought before
Okay.
capital.
So the process, I guess what I'm getting at, the process is the schools would have to present that piece of equipment or
No,
DPW?
DPW, I mean, it would be sometimes, now let's see how, again, this is why I didn't order it in November.
Right,
But if the winter were to continue to proceed as it has, there may be opportunity in our snow and ice budget to procure, you
sure.
know, a piece of equipment like this. There's a few different options. You know,
Right.
if you were to tell me tonight, go buy it, that we have to have it, I would put the PO in the ordering for it with the expectation we won't have to pay for it until it arrives. At this point, I would expect that to be again, you know,
Oh, it-
the end of March or April. We're not gonna have it for this winter season.
It sounds like we're not gonna have them
So
even
we
if
need
you
a
wanted it
plan for
today.
right now.
Right, I mean, so if we waited to March, though, that, it may even put us out another 6 months from that date
Well, no,
as
because
well.
nobody's gonna be ordering them then, right?
Well, if they're available.
Well, and.
I think it's availability, not so much,
If it's hopefully I don't need a snow blower until
right,
6 months from now. So if
Yeah.
we order it in March, it'll be here in September, installed and ready to go for next winter season.
Mhm.
Okay.
The,
Well, it has to be ordered, I guess it doesn't matter to me, it would just have to
Yeah.
be an agreement between what the, you know, what DPW's thoughts are and the town administrator and the schools, like, you know, is it smarter
I
to
mean,
wait
it's
till March?
a direct piece of equipment related, its only use is for snow and ice
Right.
removal.
Yeah,
So therefore, it's, in my mind, it's an eligible snow and ice expenditure.
sure.
Okay.
I think we should wait and order it in March, you know, and have it available for next
Okay.
year.
Well, the reason to order in March is simply more in the, John being cautious and saying,
Right.
let's make sure I have money in the
Right.
line item, so I don't have to come back to the Finance Committee for a reserve fund transfer in May, or do a line item transfer or something like that. In either case, whether you're ordering today or you're ordering in March, it's not gonna be available for this snow season.
Right.
So the only reason to delay is just budget certainty. And you could, as a placeholder, put it into the capital budget requests for
Mhm.
fiscal
Right.
'24, even for an appropriation at the special, so that you could in fact order it a month and a half in advance of waiting until July to order it.
Right,
That would be, so that you have this, you know, wait until March, see what happens, but at the same time, if we find out in March we don't have the money in the snow and ice budget, that the board pushes along with DPW and schools to purchase this, so
Mhm.
that when you're going to capital planning, you're going to the Finance Committee, this becomes a higher priority than it has been.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with, you know, whenever the process is, we have to, you know, order the piece, and I think it's smarter to order a piece that's something that goes on a piece of equipment we already own instead of two things. That brings us to our next issue, and that would be, you know, what do we do if it snows next week, right? 2 weeks from now,
Right.
3 weeks, whatever the case
Right.
may be. So, I mean, I did go out the property, it's a long stretch, you know,
1,500 feet of
Right.
sidewalk.
Do we have subcontractors that we use out there, John?
Not for sidewalk clearing, per
Okay.
se.
We don't for liability, or we just don't?
We don't. It's very specialized equipment. Typically, you know, the contractors don't have that kind of, again,
do we have the ability, so there's the piece of equipment that goes down my street.
Yeah, well, that's-
Sidewalk and screws up everything I've shoveled.
Right.
Right, so, that being, that piece of equipment, is there a way we could, you know, potentially utilize that earlier? Because it doesn't seem like they come out to start doing that stuff. I mean,
Correct.
you know, it certainly puts your staffing in a little bit of a hurt as far as the number of employees you have, but, I mean, it doesn't look
Right.
like, it doesn't look like a jet to me, like somebody can't figure it out by, you know.
that's
They have to be certified.
that's the internal plan that we're discussing.
Okay,
We could utilize that. You know,
Yep.
we have 2 of those that go out.
right,
And do each side of town. And because our effort is to try and get the sidewalks cleared as quickly as possible so that pedestrians and kids using the sidewalk can
Yep.
get to school. But obviously,
You can't go to school if it's not.
if you can't get into the schools because the sidewalks are clear, it makes no sense.
Right.
So at this point, our thought process would be to utilize.
How many of those do you have? You just
We
have that
two.
one?
Two.
Oh, you have two.
As long as they're both running, one's
Right, right,
seen better days as well.
okay.
But, so we have one, and my thought process right now would be if we got a significant snowstorm,
Mhm.
you know, have the custodians come in and start doing what they can do.
Yeah.
As soon as we can get to the point where we're even considering breaking down our snow and ice operations, we'll put that unit at the schools here, get these, walkways open,
Right,
and then they can go, move from here on to start working on
yeah.
the sidewalks.
I think what I was hoping is there a possibility that that machine could be operated by one of these?
So that machine gets utilized during the snowstorm.
Oh, both do?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, the one I would feel confident in assigning this, the other one is not in a condition that
right.
I would want to rely on it.
Is that one that we should be looking at down the future also to be replacing, Charlie?
It's so expensive, this stuff is ridiculous.
Right.
But it comes down to
Yeah,
necessity.
no, it has
also,
to be, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and now might be
Yankee
the
in
time
me.
to try it.
But yeah, so that would be my thought process at this point. Have the custodial staff with the equipment that they have, start to, you know, do what they can do as soon as, because typically by the time the custodial staff has started to come in, the storm is lulled. And we're at a point where our operations are moving
Right.
towards cleanup as well, where we could reassign an individual to essentially go out and start to assist with that.
Yeah, well, the only issue we may have is the timing, right? So, when typically do the custodians, when is school, when do you, I mean, you need, all right, so, but you need the school to be cleared by, at some point before you say, look, I can't get it done, I gotta close it down, right?
We want to try to make sure everything's okay. Well, we make a decision by five. Make a decision by 5 in the morning. So we try to get the high school done by 6:15, 6:30.
Right,
Then Central, then Mitchell, and then Central, so.
And honestly, if we have a snowstorm where we get a foot of snow, or
yep,
we're more than likely not gonna have school that day anyway.
mm-hmm,
So the school will be closed, which then gives us pretty much a full 24 hours
right.
to get school open. You know, it doesn't happen often. that
No, I
We get
agree.
a foot of snow and the
Right.
storm, and we've had a snowstorm that goes through, and it ends at 2 o'clock in the morning,
Yep,
or 3 o'clock in the morning, that we're gonna try and have a school day the following day.
Right.
More so because the rest of people aren't open to even get to school. They haven't got their driveways open to even come to
Right.
school. So, really, the situations where getting the sidewalks cleared in order to get school open is less of these significant snowstorms of, you know, a foot or more. And it
Yep.
tends to be more these 3 or 4 inch events we have that, you know, you may get 3 inches of snow that blew in, and it's 11 o'clock at midnight, and now you gotta get the schools open.
Yep.
You gotta get the walkways cleared so you can get the school open. To be honest, we can help assist with that too.
yep,
Because that's a situation where 3 or 4 inches of snow on our streets isn't as significant a snow removal operation, and we'll have staff that I could help,
yep.
that I could assist with that too. So I think we can get through this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the school, if they have at least peace of mind of what the plan is, you know, when you guys meet to coordinate what you're doing, because you've been doing the same thing for, you know, years and years, right? There's gotta be the same kind of pattern that you follow. But to figure out where you could coordinate with the school and what the school's capabilities are with some of those things. Look, the last thing we want out there is, you know, 4 or 5 custodians, you know,
No,
manhandling
and I think
shovels. I mean,
as far
that's
as
not gonna happen.
redundancy, we have another smaller enclosed cab tractor that has a a broom and a snowplow.
Okay,
But we may wanna consider getting a snow blower for that unit as well.
yep,
And then you'd have 2 enclosed cab tractors that could do this work.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think if you get together and just figure out what the cause to each storm would be based on, you know, what you guys know you gotta get done. Of course, the road's gotta be done. I mean, it's kind of a domino effect, right? Everything's gotta kinda happen in order for the next thing to happen. And again, I agree with your point, that if we're getting a foot or 2 feet of snow, school isn't probably gonna be open anyhow. But, yeah, as long as we had an idea of what your, you know, what the plan there is, and that, I think that would help solve some of the issues temporarily. And we're not gonna solve any issues until we get the hell's it, what's the
We
thing?
can just kind of reprioritize
Right,
sidewalks, snow removal,
yep, that'd be great.
to, you know, utilize our equipment to get the school, the inside of the schools cleared
Yeah.
first.
Yep.
And work our way out from
You got his number, right? You can give him a call.
there.
Is there a portion of the
Somewhere in my
sidewalks that need
Rolodex.
to be cleared to open school, right? So, like the
Yeah.
regular, not the school sidewalks, but the town sidewalks for like walkers to like Middle or Central, like, is there a component there that also has to be?
Yes.
Taken into
so
consideration?
Our sidewalk program, essentially, we work from the downtown out.
Mhm.
And, you know, we put 2 machines and, again, depending on the depth and the intensity of the storm and this and that, and even sometimes the type of the snowfall, we work, and split the town in half, and from, you know, the west side of the downtown, 1 unit goes one way, east side, another goes, and we try, obviously, to do Central Street, Plymouth Street, Whitman Street, Bedford Street. We're responsible to clear the sidewalks on Bedford Street, and we make a big,
Okay.
I think it's a, we've done like 2,000 feet on the schools, the circle, something, is if they're walking, what we're required, or.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, so it was like a radius we put on it, and we have a routes and within that we clear.
During, just if I can, during snowstorms and inclement weather that we can't walk, Lucini is instructed to pick up students. So if there's a child that does not get a bus and cannot walk on the sidewalk, they're instructed to pick up, and I've never had an issue with them not picking up a student, so.
That's great to know.
And I'll make sure that I just talked to Bill today, so I'll mention that to him.
Yeah, I would, even going back to the piece of equipment, I mean, I would prepare for town meeting either way, just so that you have, you know, at the latest, you'll have it
You can always pass over it.
if you need to do, yeah, right, if it's there. I mean, to me, that would give enough time.
Did we ever get any information on why Capital didn't approve it? Do we know?
It was lower on the rank of priorities for them and for the school. I mean, the school had asked for a number of items, I believe, last year.
Okay.
It just didn't make it as high on the list.
Okay.
You didn't sell it well, obviously.
Had I known that the 59-inch wasn't working this year, I would have
Right.
fought harder.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we're gonna get you a new one.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
2, I heard.
I know you didn't hear that. Not at all right, so, yeah, if you could just get kind of the list of, you know, the way the order will run out, I think that will clarify it. And at least if we all know what the game plan is, and we can point fingers at wherever it broke down at, right?
Crazy.
He's getting the message now.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, don't go anywhere.
Don't move.
Mr. Chairman, we're talking about requests for school department bands.
John Shea.
Coming up to it.
Liz, yeah, come on up.
She stands alone.
Doing such a good job, she's allowing you to run it.
Do you want me to hold your hand?
I was the other way.
There you go.
So we had approval during the capital process for a new van. That van was to replace our current van, which is a 2006 or 2009 van. The new vans have much better safety issues. The van just needed to be replaced. So we got approval for that. We were approved for $41,500. I have been researching, talking to some of the companies on the state bid list about vans, and they pretty much laughed at me and said, if you want a van in 2003, you won't be getting one. You have to look for a 2004. So I kind of stopped there, trying to figure out what to do. And then North River Collaborative, who we are part of, were selling some of their vans. We didn't know that they've been doing this in the past, and some of the local school districts have been taking advantage of these vans. But so they had a list of about 6 vans. We took a look at 2 of the latest models. We asked them to bring them down. They're in a parking lot now, so we could take a look at them. I know Mr. Haynes took a look at them. They are looking to sell them for blue book value. $13,000, $14,000 a piece. So we thought that that may be a good alternative to the new van, which we'd be waiting another year and a half on. We're not looking to get into the busing transportation business. What we would use these vans for are, well, just give you a little financial. Our transportation for special ed and homeless and foster care is running now about $771,000. 2 years ago, we were at $560,000, so that's a $211,000 increase. Our athletics transportation runs about $76,000 a year. So as we were thinking, with these 2 vans, we may be able to cut into some of that increased cost. Examples are if we have students in the debate team that are going on a debate, and there's 5 or 6 of them, we can drive them in the new van rather than paying Lucini to drive them to the event. Now, our current rate for Lucini is the minimum for an athletic event or a field trip is $275. That's a minimum. Whether they go from here to West Bridgewater, that's the minimum, $275. So other examples are if we have a student that breaks a leg and can't use the bus, rather than hiring an outside company to transport that student at $60, it's probably about $100 a day to transport that student to school and from school. If we can utilize these vans to pick up that student, you know, it's short term, but it's a savings. The savings would be cut in half.
The school's on the hook for a student that really.
Yeah.
You know, we're paying. You know, we've got some children that we transport back and forth to Brockton. We're paying like $160, $120 a day, depending on where they are.
New Bedford.
We've got a student transporting to New Bedford. We're paying $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right.
For transportation. So it kind of was a perfect storm. The opportunity arose for these 2 vans, and our costs are going through the roof, and we were looking at you know, trying to save costs.
Yep.
These are 7D vans.
That was going to be my next
7D
question, was the
vans.
licensing.
Yeah, and we would need 7D drivers for them. We have a couple already.
So you must have people on staff?
We
Maybe already
sent
have
some, we offered it up, and we had some teacher assistants
Great.
that could drive before and after school and would want to do it for extra
Yeah.
stipends, because I talked to other districts, and that's how they're doing it. And we, the RMV was hosting a licensure class on a Saturday, and we sent them up.
Oh.
And we had 2 people go and get their licenses.
That's great.
So, I mean, we're gonna continue to offer it, but, I mean, we're trying to figure out how can we just, I mean,
Yep.
That was my
Tap in.
next, Carol, how are we gonna staff these vehicles?
Yeah.
How about the maintenance?
Yep, that was
are you-
approached. Yep.
Yep, so I've actually driven one of,
Oh, you have.
Are you licensed?
I'm licensed, fully licensed.
Yeah.
Remember that, he's licensed.
But our DPW fleet mechanics did both of them a quick once over. They appear safe and well maintained. They appear to be fleet maintained already. One of them, I can't remember which one, looked like it may need brakes in the not too distant future.
you were gonna say.
But they're The only issue that we will have is it will likely require us to purchase another software module, because unfortunately now, until you plug the computer into it, you can't even change the
All
weather.
proprietary software.
So, we've worked for the last decade plus to kind of convert the town to a Ford fleet for exactly those reasons. And these are Dodge vehicles.
How much
So,
would that software package be?
think we're probably in the area of $2,500 for that. Which will at least allow us to have like code readers and things like that. But other than that, they're pretty straightforward little minivans.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The money's already been allocated.
Yeah, so that was my
Yep.
question, really. I mean, I can, obviously I've heard about these vans enough already, so.
Really?
I certainly support it, and I said I was with John when he went
Yeah.
over and looked at it. So the question I only had, I think, was for Charlie, and maybe town council helped you with it, was just the difference in what the article had, the way it was written.
The article, it said van, we were talking two vans. I think, within the four corners, I think the board should be comfortable
Right.
in purchasing two instead of one. We're certainly gonna be within the appropriation.
Yep.
The purpose, was laid out for the town.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion that, or do we amend the town meeting vote, or?
Well, you can't amend the town meeting
No.
vote, but just, you're gonna be,
Move
well,
forward.
you're gonna
It's-
indicate to Liz and John that when the bill comes due, you're gonna be signing that.
We'll say it's okay to pay.
I'm not going for
So
the
do we
bad
actually need I mean, it's already been,
Right
I don't even
now,
know if we need a
Oh, you
motion,
only,
right?
because you're not, but you needed to have this conversation. You didn't want to have this conversation when the bill came and someone started asking questions
Right,
about
right.
it and everything.
No, it needed to be
before it
public,
So
goes
yeah.
we're
out,
all in
like that.
agreement.
Yeah, no, it's,
When the bill
makes
comes in,
sense.
give it to Charlie.
right.
He'll write you a check.
Yeah, the money's been approved, so it's just a matter of making sure we had clarification before
Okay.
some fool saw two vans roll in here and started yelling and screaming, right? So, we think we've answered those questions. Good job figuring out a way to take
Thank
care
you.
of some problems.
So I have one more question. Because it's 41,000,
Mhm.
and looking at the purchase and sales will be approximately 26 or 27,000. The remainder of that money, can it be used for new brakes and new tires for the vehicles? And can we buy the new software? If not, I just want to know where it stops tonight, so I don't have to come back. So just tell me what I have to do next time.
Unfortunately, the way we are, word articles here right now in East Bridgewater, it wasn't an all-encompassing thing. It's something we can work with the capital plan committee, in future purchases to say, associated equipment,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever, but my reading is that it's just said vans.
Okay. But that's fine. I just want to make sure that where we're at.
Talk to you
That's
after.
too
So we
bad.
have- so we have $14,000.
Even that software though
Right.
seems like that.
Yes, so if we need,
Right.
so we,
Or
in,
is it-
in 4 months, if we can get to the special and make the change.
Then we
I
could-
thought they were
Then we
doing
could
the
change
change
it
of
at
the
the
brakes,
special.
the company, and they
Well,
were
based
selling
upon this
the-
discussion, we can certainly have them do that.
Yeah, because we have
Increase the, sales
$14,000 now that we have to figure out what we do with.
Take much to figure it
They
out,
were here
right?
today. We have everything. They got all the
You have
paperwork.
to repaint them now and take off North River Collaborative and
Right.
add, it's great to be a Viking.
How did they manage to get,
Yes.
how did they manage to get vans to replace the ones they're
They're
selling?
on they have, the way they explained it, they're on a fleet.
Like auto ship, they automatically get,
They're on a fleet
We had leasing every-
purchasing.
okay.
So they're probably 10 years out, so every year they're getting
Right,
5.
right.
They're
So
just
they were-
automatically
they were ordering
replacing.
them.
Yeah,
That's the way these
so they
numbers
probably,
work.
every
They were
6 months, they
ordering
get 5 more. Matter of
these.
fact, oops, sorry.
Yeah,
that's-
I'm sorry.
you're right.
were
They must
ordering
have
these
huge
vehicles
turnover.
18 months ago.
Yeah.
They must have a huge
They
fleet.
probably leased,
They have
them,
them.
bought the leases out at this point, and just.
Well, matter of fact, they were telling, Eileen told us today that, from North River, that they were nervous. They're like, we don't want to sell anymore because now they're having trouble. But they're so far ahead right now
Yep.
that they're having to switch the vans every 2 weeks because they don't want them sitting for more than 14 days or 20 days in the lot. So every 10 days, they're switching them up to pick up on the same route. So I drive for 10 days, I pick up another van, I drive for 10 days.
Oh,
That's why they're selling these, because the new fleet is coming in and they're being
Okay.
tried out. So,
Okay, good.
Interesting.
All right.
Well,
Thank
Good
you for
game
clearing
Thank
that
you.
up.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thanks for clearing
Thank
that
you
up.
very much.
Good job.
Good to see you.
Two good presentations, Mr. Shea, that's very good.
Two more than usual.
We're gonna
is
put
what
that
you're
on your
saying.
permanent record.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve to renew the contract for the town of Lakeville, and the town to utilize Lakeville Animal Shelter by using stray and surrendered dogs. This agreement would expire December 31st, 2023.
Second.
It's similar to the previous agreements the board's approved. They have extended it. Basically, I think their main point is, and we know the chief is working with the ACO, they want a Plan B, that in case for some reason Lakeville is full,
Yep.
that we have a process in place to be able to house one or more dogs if they are full. That was, I think, the biggest change between the agreement we have right now, or the agreement that ended and one that they're proposing.
Okay.
And council has reviewed it, he has no problems.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? Chief, you have anything on that? Or no? Good?
Nope.
All right,
Pretty much the same as last year.
okay. Motion's made second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Chairman, we have one additional action item. A motion to approve the signage request from Jake Orofino of East Bridgewater Music Parents Association to put up 4 signs to Town Common for the 8th annual mattress sale fundraiser from January 10th, 2023 to January 29th, 2023. Event will be held on Saturday, January 28th from 10 to 4 at the Junior Senior High School, 11 Plymouth Street.
Second.
All right, back to signs again, huh? I thought we, so what was the final verdict on the signs? And is this on the common or just
Yes,
around it? Yeah.
Just around it, just.
It's not political in nature,
Yeah,
so
Okay.
it's
political
okay.
sign.
Well, it's, but all,
Just
And it's a
a reminder.
fundraiser for a town.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, I just don't wanna,
Thing.
you know, have
We
someone
know.
not come knocking at the
well,
door.
also, what you can be saying is that as part of your approval, you're in essence endorsing the event.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Right.
All right. just wanna make
It
sure
is
we
a great
get that
event,
clear
though, I will say.
Oh, yeah.
We
Got a
got a
couple there.
mattress
Yep.
from them a few years ago.
I did too. All right, motion made,
Easy shopping.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
That is it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, let's, staff reports. Lee, you've got anything over there for us?
I do, from the
Oh,
town
right.
clerk's office. 2023 annual census have been mailed to all households.
Mhm.
Yes, they have.
To please return to the town clerk's office within 10 days. Drop boxes are located at the town hall, council on aging, and the public library. Please call the town clerk's office if you have any questions at 508-378-1606.
Great, thank you. That's it?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, Mr. Administrator,
This is a very long list.
it is, it's
We're
good.
gone for
Got
5
a lot of
weeks.
stuff, man, got a lot.
Things do happen.
Guy's been doing some stuff. All right,
So, on the last day,
yeah.
it was possible to do this. The governor signed 2 necessary pieces of legislation for the town of East Bridgewater. The first was the municipal acceptance of subdivision roads in the town of East Bridgewater. So we'll now have to start working with John and with the planning board to come up with the list of streets and make sure we have the associated documentation that will allow. This does not mean all private roads qualify, but a number of them where they went through the subdivision process but never exited it. So we do have sets of plans at some level of plans.
Right.
Approved subdivision plans as an example, even if they're not the true as-built, that we're gonna be able to go through this process, review on a street-by-street basis, and hope to bring a number of the streets to town meeting in May for approval and acceptance. Acceptance would then do a couple of things. It would increase, or it shouldn't increase, our Chapter 90 allowance by a slight amount, because one of the factors for the town's state aid under Chapter 90 are the number of miles of accepted roads in town. The other end, of course, then is then you spend the money in that these roads then become eligible for major repairs and renovation projects by the town, paving included. But obviously, people should be cautioned that John's budget only goes so far, simply because you add a couple more miles of streets doesn't mean he gets that much more money. And I'm sure there are a number of other roads in town that are accepted streets or ancient ways that also require work. So if someone's feeling that on May 8th, oh, I'm gonna vote for this, then May 9th, they're gonna see some paving projects happening on Able Street. It's It's not gonna happen
No.
that way.
But let me just, as we move forward with this, I did speak to John about this, because this was been an ongoing issue for many, many years. And it's not just East Bridgewater, right? There's plenty of towns, right, that have it. But having found a way to get this moved forward is great. And, you know, I mean, the work of the board and even, and mostly Chris Kenny, you know, having researched this out and found stuff as we pushed him. I mean, we were all over the place, from conservation to planning board to wherever. 3 different town administrators. I mean, it was crazy, you know, but to get it done is great. And the discussion I had with John was, you know, because we know what the final game is, right? Let's get these roads to where we need them to be, especially since we're taking them over now, so the liability falls back on us. So I would ask, and I already talked to John about this, you know, having him put together a list on some of the roads I think that are already even named in some of the legislations that we put forward. I mean, you know, we got Rolling Hills, Fieldcrest Drive, and some of the other ones, just so the board would, and what type of money we're talking about, right?
I
So,
think that's important for people. And so
Right.
I took the liberty of doing a few numbers, and these are actually based on 2021 construction costs. So everything,
So double them?
30%
so everything
for
has
that.
quite an inflation.
Right.
But, so Rolling Hills, obviously, is one that has been a lot of discussion. That's approximately 14,000 square feet of pavement. That's about a mile of pavement, you know, when you think about it. So to reclaim, it's essentially to grind up the base and put it back down. It's not really extensive. It's just essentially to a new road base. And then to put 3 inches of new pavement on there. Again, at 2021 construction costs, which is our last bid. New bids will be coming out for 2023, but it's $289,000 for that one subdivision.
do you think that's all that would be needed over there, John? I mean, you wouldn't.
Primarily, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, what the issue, particularly with Rolling Hills,
Yep.
is the age of the existing pavement. It's a 40-plus-year-old subdivision, and the pavement deteriorates. The life expectancy of any pavement, no matter how good it is 15 to 20 years.
Right.
Particularly your wearing surfaces. Everything's just like your house. You keep your house painted and good
Right.
general condition, it's gonna last a long time. If you don't do anything to it, and you expect it's gonna last twice as long as its life expectancy, well, it's probably not gonna happen.
So you're not talking about, I mean, my envision them having to go like down to the dirt, right? And clear everything out of there and then start with each. I mean,
No,
I'm
so
not-
what the process, we've done it on, you know, when I started working here 20-plus years ago,
Yep.
Harvard Street, we went and you essentially grind up the existing asphalt with the base, that's called reclamation, and you grind that asphalt and the gravel that makes the road base up, and it makes a new road base. It's to a depth of, 8 to 10 inches.
Mhm.
You regrade that, you reprofile that surface, you compact it, and then you come in and you put 2.5 to 4 inches of new pavement, depending on the travel type of the road and this and that. Some roads we'll even, like Central Street, we did 5 inches just to get a little more density in the pavement. But it's all based on your traffic. And honestly, a subdivision like Rolling Hills, although it's a large subdivision, it doesn't get heavy truck traffic and this and that. So, with this process and 3 inches of new asphalt, you're gonna have a road that lasts with proper maintenance. You'll get another 40 years out of it.
Now, there's no other problems with the layout of the roads that are Rolling Hills?
Well,
Basins and stuff like that?
As far as how the road functions, no. As far as some of the legalities about where
Property lines.
and things may be, that's a whole
Yeah, we're
other
not.
process that the planning board may or may not choose to look at, because that's the intent of this special legislation.
Yep.
Was to allow the town to move forward and adopt the road in its
Right.
current.
No, I just wanted to bring that up because
Correct.
people.
It
I
will,
want them to
right.
think that
That's a
this is
whole.
a fix-all, because it's not.
Right, I
Yeah,
don't
no.
believe
We
that.
want to fix the street. This is
What
what we're
was just
doing.
done will remedy some of those other issues.
Right.
But as far as getting the streets fixed, it authorizes the town of East Bridgewater to now go in and do
Right.
that work. And I think most of the people, they just want their road fixed.
Right, oh yeah, definitely.
Um,
What is the,
Field-
but a mile of road You said, what,
So
about
it'd be about $300,000.
300,000, and what's the timing on a project of that nature? A few months, 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, once funding's appropriated, contracts in place, we're probably, it's probably a 2-month,
All right.
2 months of disruption.
Okay.
Just because of the size and scope. It's actually a little more difficult in a subdivision like that, because you have so many driveways and things, and
Right.
a little more traffic to manage and stuff. So, you know, yeah, it's could be a construction season. Honestly, what I would probably do, and what I've had success in doing, is you go in and you do the reclamation process, and then you put down the base in 1 year, and then the following year,
Yeah.
we'll come back and we top, put the 1.5 inch of wearing surface back on the road. It allows everything to settle for a year. And you end up with a better product. But for 95% of the people in there, they're not gonna be, they wouldn't know that it wasn't a finished product.
Top coat.
A top coat, so.
All right, and this, Charlie, this is more direct, I guess, to you. This would be a project that I would assume we would put in front of capital, wouldn't we? And then bond or something, or how does
Well,
this
my hope
usually?
is we wouldn't be bonding. I think
Okay.
what, setting aside whatever budgetary limits we have,
Right.
and John and I have talked about this, is, and this is true of a number of communities, not just in southeastern Mass, but across Massachusetts. Everybody's being hit by the same increase in costs. Even before the pandemic,
Sure.
costs have been increasing on your normal everyday type of paving projects. And so the dollars that you had allocated simply were not going as far. And I've talked to John, I think we need to be incrementally increasing the amount of money we put in the capital plan, not as a bond, but a bond would be something that we would do if we had a series of road projects and of this magnitude and wanted to get them all done
Right.
over a course of a couple of seasons.
Right.
But we have, I think it's 500,000.
On average, for about the last 8 years, we've been allocating about 500,000 towards.
We need to slowly increase, I mean, not a dramatic, but, just hypothetically say, instead of 500, go to 550, the next year go to 600, go to 650, so that we can slowly increase. But you can see that 500 doesn't get you 2 miles.
Right, and this is gonna, because of some of the other factors that have developed around this, we have several different subdivisions that are in roads that are, main roads that are in these. So, just for comparison, we have to understand, so Rolling Hills is in 2021 costs was $290,000. Fieldcrest is $228,000.
Right.
River Road is $72,000.
Yep.
So we've almost, just in 3 roads, eaten up what we allocate for
Right.
2 years.
That's why I don't think it can be done with that bond. I mean, I don't know
Well, it
how else
depends
you
on-
would do it. You'd be
well-
here for the rest of the.
Well, because you're gonna, it will be a policy and budgetary decision through you all, capital planning, finance committee, et cetera,
Mhm.
to say, how much are we willing to spend? Because in reality, we, as with a number of other things, we haven't been spending enough money on road projects, as an example. So you're going to need to make a decision. If you bond, sure, you can say, we're gonna get it all done, but then you're gonna be paying back, and the money you're using to pay the bond is therefore not going in future years towards those other road projects you're doing.
Right.
What really needs to be happening is a policy consensus that says, we're gonna bite the bullet and say, as opposed to other projects that we need in the town that we're not bonding for, we're gonna emphasize doing these projects. It may mean that you don't buy a piece of equipment in a certain year.
Right.
Because whether you bond or not bond, there are limits as to what we have as capacity to either pay on an annual basis for capital projects or to bond and having to pay the principal and interest.
Right.
Unless you're gonna go debt exclusion, which I don't, right, so.
Roads?
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
there are communities
The
that.
only thing that would ever pass.
There are communities that
Debt exclusion for roads.
have done debt exclusions for roads, because they basically said, we're gonna do everything. I don't mean necessarily every single mile of
Right.
town, but there were so many miles of town in Community X that they said, we gotta do the whole thing. We gotta spend $10 million, for instance. Because we've got so many miles of road that are in disrepair, and with the understanding that now, you're gonna be paying that back.
And I honestly don't feel that we're in that situation. East Bridgewater has invested, again, probably not as much as we should have, but unlike a lot of other communities that do find themselves in that situation, we have invested and utilized a pretty smart capital pavement management plan and we've incorporated, when we did other infrastructure projects, we've incorporated road restoration into those projects as well. So we've made pretty steady progress. The issue is going to be with some of these very, I don't know exactly the right term for, but these subdivisions that have gotten a lot of local resident attention, making the determination about
Right.
who's gonna get theirs done first and
Right.
whatnot is gonna be a conversation for another night, but.
Right, but I mean, all right, let's take out of the equation the fact that, the roads aren't as bad as other towns or whatever it may be. I mean, if you looked at what we really see to be the problem, the ones that we've heard from, right? I don't think we're talking $10 million. I mean.
No, I gave that as an example. I'm not saying that we need to spend $10 million,
Right.
but that's where you start talking about, the cost is so large that you've fallen that far behind. You have to go through a debt exclusion in order to actually afford those projects.
Unfortunately, this is information I don't bring in front of you often.
Right.
Never, because again, these numbers just get astronomical.
Sure.
But, so we have almost 1 million square feet of, square yards of pavement in East Bridgewater. And, our pavement management plan, we try to address 7,000 to 10,000 square yards a year to kind of keep us in a maintenance, ongoing maintenance, so that we don't go back to where we were 20 years ago when I started, and we literally had main roads in East Bridgewater that had deteriorated to a point where they were almost impassable, right? You remember Harvard Street and
Oh,
West
yeah.
Union Street
Yep.
and back in the day.
Yep.
We don't have those situations anymore, and we've invested between the town committee money and utilizing state chapter 90 dollars and getting increase in those over the years. So we have a good pavement maintenance plan, but our pavement maintenance plan, which, is an actual document that I can show all of you, is to maintain our road network, we should be putting about $1.2 million a year
Wow.
towards our pavement.
Right.
That's just your pavement. That's not even talking about drainage and stormwater and water infrastructure, and as we move into sewer maintenance and things like that, the numbers just become astronomical.
And we get 500
Right.
from, that we're willing to put in the budget every year. We get probably, a similar amount.
About 400 is our chapter 90.
Yeah.
Right.
And we've been able to.
So 900 versus $1 million or $1.2 million, plus knowing, as John just mentioned, all the other aspects of infrastructure for our right-of-ways, sidewalks and crosswalks and drainage and everything else have to fit within that.
Right. But, on the other side of the coin, when you think about it, right, so we push it off for 2 or 3 years, are the costs coming down?
No.
Like, yeah, right, what are they doing? They're expanding, right? So I think the point from the resident side, as well as me personally, is the fact that we have to put something in place on a little bit more, and maybe we have been under budgeting. You're definitely right? The road maintenance.
But again, it's a
going on.
finite, you have finite sources.
Right.
Whether, so you're gonna pick and choose no matter what you do. I mean, I'm not saying that it's in a bad way, but in the sense of, there will be limits as to what we can do within the next couple of years with these roads, because it's more than those couple of subdivisions, or
Oh, yeah.
our regular roads in town, the ones that we've already accepted, we already maintain and everything.
The bottom line is, and I know where you're coming from, Peter,
Yep.
up in there, this is not an overnight fix.
Right.
This is this is a projection, this is almost going into a 10-year plan.
Yeah, well, this took
Okay,
10
how-
years,
how are
right?
we going to
This
do it?
this approval took 10 years, right? I
Okay, so
mean-
see how far ahead of the game we are.
Yeah,
And,
right.
and honestly, one of the things that I would probably propose is we look at, you know, and it doesn't, you do projects in phases. So we might do, if we have 14,000 square yards in one subdivision, we have another subdivision that's equally in the
Yep.
disrepair, and it's the equivalent. We say, we're gonna do, you know, we're gonna do 5,500 square yards of each over a 3-year plan to essentially accomplish, you
Right.
know. Or what we do is, again, that $300,000 number for Rolling Hills, and this is all stuff, if you ever wanna talk about it, we can talk about it more in depth, but, you know, we could say, okay, so it's to reclaim the entirety of Rolling Hills and put the binder basin is probably $200,000. And to do the to do the same process in Fieldcrest, because it's a little bit smaller, it's 11,000 square yards instead of 14. Okay, that's probably $160,000 to do that process. And then we say, okay, we're gonna try to do those two things in entirety this year. Next year, we'll come in and we'll take the remaining 25,000 square yards of top, and we'll top whole subdivisions.
Right.
The next year, and that'll be, you know, $250,000.
Yep.
And that's how we stretch those dollars, so that, you know, now instead of looking at, we need $800,000 of our $900,000 annual investment, we're gonna put it all into 2 subdivisions, we make it work, so that, you know, over 2 years, maybe even 3 years, we've gotten it accomplished, but we haven't totally ignored all the other needs of the rest of the town.
No, I agree. I mean, I certainly don't
I
want
think
to.
there's a plan.
I agree,
We just need
too.
to get through some steps.
But there is some catch-up that needs to
Right.
take a little bit more aggressive action, which sounds like, you know, that's what you're talking about, and
Right.
I'll
I mean, at
spend
least
every
that
cent
way,
we
because
get.
I think with Rolling Hills, right, one of the worst spots is right where you first come in.
Right.
So that would affect everybody that drives in to get those things that are, you know,
Yeah, it can be highlighted. I think,
and then like the same idea at Fieldcrest.
Right, it's
At
not
least
just
get the things
Fieldcrest.
I think
fixed.
this is a conversation for another night,
David
to
would-
do this
it
whole
was,
thing.
yeah.
oh, it will
How
be,
we're going
it will
to
be,
plan
but
it.
I mean, you know, like I said,
I think
we've worked hard to get this
we've initiated
first
it.
part done. You know, I mean, me and John talk all the time, so I mean, it's just a matter of saying, look, let's figure out what it is and what the
And I
process.
think if we can show those residents that we actually have a plan of how we're gonna.
Right, that's it.
Attack this, they'll be
That's the way it
willing
is.
to work with us and understand, like,
Right,
you know, okay, we got this done, we said we were gonna get this done, and it's done. Now, we said we're gonna do this part, and we'll get that done,
yeah.
and you just gotta be willing to work with us for a little.
Yeah, and you gotta just kind of give them a timeline, because, you know, I mean, not just them, but any of the residents that came into the planning board and heard for so many years that, you know, there's nothing they could do, or, you know, the road's unaccepted, or whatever the case may be. It's great that we were able to get this done, and obviously you had a big part of it as well, but it's just a matter of now saying, okay, we've got it done, now let's talk about what that long,
Now we gotta really get something done.
right, what that plan is,
It's
and
gonna take a plan.
put it on the
Because it's
paper.
not just these two we're talking about, we're
No,
talking
this-
about the whole town.
I mean, what was it, Water Street over there?
It's
That's,
North Water Street.
yeah, I mean,
River Road,
Right.
right across the street from Rolling Hills.
one over by Mary Lou's, what street's that over
Yep,
there?
That's water.
North Water.
That's what, okay, yeah,
Street.
right, so that's, yeah, I mean,
Old
you
Bedford
That's a
Street.
lose
disaster.
cars in that thing
That's a
over there.
disaster.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely the needs, I just, you know, like I said, I think if we have, at least give them, you know, some sort of, like I talked about with rec, right, a time pattern of what we're looking at, and we shoot for that. I mean, does it work? Sometimes it doesn't, you know, we run into other issues, but at least if we have the plan ahead of them, they'll know what's going
Yeah,
on.
and, you know, working with Charlie, like he said, I mean, to recognize the fact, we just had this conversation last week, I mean, the willingness to recognize the fact that the $500,000 that we've been allocating about every year for the last 8 years.
Yep.
Doesn't have the same value that it did
No.
8 years ago.
Oh, yesterday.
So, yeah, so
Right.
we need to incrementally adjust those, you know, those costs as well in part of a plan.
Great, all right, thank you, John. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to.
So, that was one.
That was
And then
one.
we had the
Down
other
to two.
which is the sewer district
Right.
also got approved.
Yep.
Obviously, that allows us to move forward. I mean, what it does is it sort of combines with the work that the board has done previously, in that we had the appropriation last year, we had the special legislation that got found, now it's approved, we got the bylaw that set up the mechanics for the sanitary sewer district when we're up in operation. There's still a lot more work besides the actual construction. Again, talking with John in terms of, okay, at some point we're turning that spigot on. Before we do, what are we doing about personnel and how we're gonna operate the department and such, in terms of employees, in terms of supervisors and such. But it's important that the legislature and the governor did this, because what it does is give the town a legal basis for the operation. So I did, as much as everything did get done at the last minute, I am sure there are hundreds and hundreds of pieces of special legislation from communities across the state that did not make it to the governor's desk.
Right.
So everything the board did, working with our legislative delegation, made the difference in that those were on the governor's desk that last morning. We were worried. He did his last walk the afternoon before. He said, is that it? He's not coming back? Nothing. No, he came back the next morning before Governor Healy got sworn in, and along, I think it was about 90 some odd pieces of legislation.
Yep.
It was weird.
93,
One piece,
96?
there was one piece of special legislation they vetoed. This, I think, was in Salem or some place up on the North Shore about speed limits.
Right.
So it wasn't a slam dunk.
It wasn't an
necessarily.
automatic.
Milton.
Yeah. So the work, like I said, the work of the board and the work of our delegation, both are folks who,
They're not answering my calls anymore.
No.
the folks who, have served the town but have left, and the folks who have continued to serve the town, the folks who've been coming in, all work together to ensure that this happened.
Yep. It's great. I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
I'm done.
God.
Yeah, be quiet.
He was a god.
Yes.
There are many.
Yes, still up.
I'm still up, I know. So we'll talk about cybersecurity. The 2022 program finished. The town was participating in that. We did well right at the beginning when most people signed in to check out how well they were performing in terms of, noticing which things they should be avoiding doing or what things they should be doing. And then we sort of just fell right into the average for the rest of the year, which is not where we want to be. So for 2023, it will be a 6-month program rather than a full year program. Ryan and I will be back seeing the board in late spring to ask the board to really push on this in terms of working with employees, working with department heads, expanding the program wherever possible, because it's like, you've got 10 doors in your building. You want to lock half of them, that's nice, but the burglar goes all around and checks to see which of those doors are open, and they find one. We need to lock as many of those doors as possible. And that means working with our employees, working with department heads to say this is an important piece. It's bothersome, yeah, you need to spend 10 minutes maybe every couple of weeks on a different module, learning about cybersecurities and do and do nots. But what we just saw in Swansea, for instance, they needed to shut down the schools for a day because they got hit.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. So it's out there. It does, whether you're a private business, whether you're a town or school district or anybody else, you always have the potential. And what we want to do is the inconvenience for our employees and everything to go through, and the training is minuscule versus the inconvenience that all of us here in the building and the other buildings would suffer along with the general public. Central Street, heavy commercial vehicle exclusion. We had gotten the data from OCPC a few weeks ago. There's no question that we have a large number, percentage-wise, of the vehicles that travel on Central Street are trucks. And therefore, it would be a perfect candidate for a truck exclusion, except if you exclude trucks in one place, it's like the balloon. You push in one engine, one place, the balloon wants to expand to someplace else. And there's no place for the balloon to expand in this case. So there is, but it's a very inconvenient place. In essence, Central Street is called Central Street, pun intended, for a reason, because it's central to the traffic pattern in the town, and moving vehicles of all types from this part of the town over to the northeast section of town. Asking any traffic to divert means putting it, whether trucks or cars, on roads that are not as designed as well as Central Street for truck traffic. Therefore, and once we do that, it would simply end up getting us complaints from the residents on those roads.
Right.
So I appreciate the residents' concern about wanting to move truck traffic from Central Street to no location. But the answer is, unfortunately, and we'll get to another street in a minute, in general, there's no place to go, and it would worsen the situation.
Right.
I don't know.
So Peter and I are stuck with it, is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Right. Well, I mean, your point's pretty
yeah,
firm, right? Central Street is Central Street,
It
just
is.
like Main Street is
It
Main
is.
Street.
yeah.
Basically the equivalent of Main Street.
Right.
But I would like to be able to send a letter to the residents, say, look, we did look into this. We appreciate that the issues, we're not denying those issues of noise and everything else, but
It is loud.
the alternatives are worse in general for the rest of the town. That's about it. We got another one, in fact, just today, someone had written into the board about Elm Street. This, again, and the chief had mentioned, in fact, there's work going on up in Brockton over in Thatcher, which might be one of the reasons why there may have been a material increase in the last few months. But even setting that aside, again, Elm Street is one of those places that provides the most direct route from the center of town, pretty much up to the northwest corner into Brockton.
Right.
In fact, if I go to OCPC, what do I use? That's how I connect up. Because of how the road geography of the town, there might be the possibility of pushing the traffic over to Highland and then down North Bedford rather than it going on Central and then up Elm. What would happen is someone who would want to go Central to Elm and then up to Thatcher would instead go up North Bedford to Highland, hook in from Highland up to Elm. It's not a significant detour. I'm not sure that Highland is any more suited one way or the other than Elm, but if it was something the board wanted to look at, we could do the same thing we did with OCPC, get the traffic out, but
Right.
John
How would you
just
even do
received
that?
information today.
How do you do that? Like put a sign up saying no
Basically, yeah.
detour, go this way instead of
In
that way?
essence, yeah.
Between like certain hours?
No, you can do it for.
Wouldn't that create the same problem we just said we can't do on Central Street?
Well, yes,
We're
but
just gonna send
but
it
the
to
thing is,
another area.
well, the question then becomes, is Highland, North Bedford is obviously more suited than Elm Street for going north.
Right.
Right.
The thing is where the truck traffic on Highland, trucks going on Highland are worse or better than trucks going on Elm.
Yeah.
Because that would be the diversion, would be North Bedford to Highland to Elm instead of North Bedford to Central to Elm.
The traffic study would also allow you, and these are the growth, the development we're all seeing, it's this heavy truck traffic, there's more distribution, there'll be a lot more truck traffic headed up Highland Street soon on a regular
Right.
basis.
That's why I'm saying it, we bring in the,
And we aren't
water district
exactly
up
sure
Yeah.
where the complaint was coming up, whether the traffic, because I believe it was 134
Yeah.
Elm Street, which is at the north central side.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know whether it's traffic coming from North Central Street, turning onto Elm Street and headed toward Highland or Brockton, or whether it's traffic coming from Brockton onto,
Right.
Well, I figure it was both ways.
both ways, so that probably means you're actually dealing with traffic that's coming from off of Route 106 in West Bridgewater and is working its way into, whether it be from Laurel Street or whatnot, to cut across there to Brockton.
Right.
Or, and then are you gonna send that traffic to North Central Street, which means you get into the center of town, and now that heavy truck traffic has to either go up and enter Bedford Street at the Library Hill,
Library, right.
which isn't great.
yeah,
Might
we,
stop it.
with the approval of our new sewer district up there, Highland Street is,
That's a question for you.
I think the worst thing we could possibly do is start diverting traffic to Highland Street.
Right, no, you wouldn't want to.
Well,
Again, I don't
and
even
what I
know
would-
how you would, I still don't understand how you,
Just put up signs saying you can't use Elm Street.
and like they're gonna read that and,
Right.
like,
Well,
oh geez, I can't go
No, but
this
you can
way.
ticket them when they do, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you'd have to have people out there, right?
That's all we
So, I mean, the only thing I can do with the resident, again, is basically a similar situation to Central, is that we understand the complaint, we're not
Right,
ignoring it in the sense of disputing it, it's simply that our options are worse. The ability to move the traffic will be worse for the town overall
right.
than what we're allowing it to happen right now.
This was one letter from a resident on Elm Street that you
Yes.
received?
Well, the whole thing with Central as the basis was one letter also.
Yeah, right. Well, Central, it's, I mean, we got two people on the board here that live on Central Street, so it's.
I
They
didn't
didn't
write
make
the
it-
letter, did
right.
you?
I'm not gonna say I did.
Was it anonymous?
No,
Well, Central Street has seen.
I didn't know you could write letters. I'm gonna start writing them.
Heavy truck
Oh, yeah.
Answer 'em.
Right.
in the last 2+ years due to specifically the development
Right.
of the far end of Central Street and the industrial park
Right.
utilization. That area's, you know, the-
Even regular traffic on Central
Right.
Street
Yeah,
has
right.
had a big.
well, you have more houses and I mean, more houses these days also mean, more, not tractor trailers, but just trucks.
right.
Bring Amazon or anybody
Yeah.
else bring packages.
Yeah.
As an example.
Rubbish trucks,
Yeah,
That's coming next.
4 on any given day.
That's the discussion for the 23rd.
right.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
can't wait.
I'll do that. Letter by Commuter Rail Communities Coalition, that came in last week. I forwarded it to the board. I didn't say not to support it, but I also said this needs to be from the board, it can't be from me.
Right.
I mean, we need commuter rail. We're not gonna have a station here, but obviously we have residents who want to be able to commute from Bridgewater or from Brockton, to go to work, into the Boston area.
Yep.
And a healthy commuter rail system is helpful to the town.
Definitely.
Support it, definitely.
Yeah, and we've been discussing with Old Colony Planning as well about, the district and having traffic, worked. I think me and John actually brought, Charlie and Mary over to the Compass campus and had introduced them to the owners there, and I think they've exchanged information, and we'll talk about, bringing in, whether you use BAT or one of the other
Right.
types of transportation to get people in and out there. So we certainly understand the, like David just said, the multiple of different types of traffic and people that'll be in that area, so
Right.
we've got that in our, definitely in our eyes.
Emergency closing severe weather policy. I brought this up simply because thankfully we haven't had any days like that so far, but I know last
Knock
winter,
on something.
we had, the policy was in place from several years ago, but there was also some conversation that now, because of COVID, many of our employees have laptops and could in fact get work done at home if they were, told the buildings were closed. Thing is, the board never changed the policy. And if the board, and there are some challenges that if the board is going to insist on that being the case, whether it's because of union negotiations or simply, there are some employees, it's easier to get the work done. For some employees, they may not have internet service. There are a number of factors that would go into play if we're going to be requiring people to work from home when buildings are closed, either because of severe weather, snowstorms, or some other reason that we're closing. If the board wants that to occur and have the policy changed, then I would work probably with town council and with the department heads to go over how we would implement that. If otherwise, the current policy simply is, and this was done pre-pandemic, is that, okay, we're closed, you get the day with pay, and that's as simple as that. Now, mind you, there's nothing preventing people, as long as they, have a chance to bring their computers home. If they want to get work done from home, we're not going to say no, but there's a difference between that and making it a requirement.
I think, for now, I think the policy just remained the same as it was. If we're going to do this, we have to bring it up to every union, and
Yeah.
we have enough going on with union conversations right now, not to add something else to that conversation. So just leave it the way it is. If we're off, we're off. And if people, want to go home and they want to do something at home, that's fine.
Yeah, but I don't think
Not required.
it's not fair to have some
Right.
people who can be expected to do it, and then other people who can't
Right.
be let off the hook and not have to do it.
Again, if
I
we're
think
closed, you don't know
needs to
who
be
has it.
equitable.
You don't know, if we're closed because of weather, you don't know who has internet to begin with.
Exactly.
I'd leave it the way
Have
it
you
is.
had-
A snow day is a snow day.
Right.
Besides, they're probably half of them are busy enough shoveling themselves, because we don't have a 55-inch
Yeah. right.
plow coming by and working on their sidewalk for
We're
them.
working on getting personal for every house in town.
Okay. Those have to have heated cup holders.
The heated handles.
Yes, that too, yeah.
Ours doesn't have that.
Motor vehicle backing up
Wi-Fi.
policy. This is a adjunct to the vehicle policy. What I was doing was going through some of the policies, and Maya, if you have these policies in place, the discounts aren't huge, but there's discounts on our premiums if we have these policies in place. And I know backing up is always a hazard. I mean, when I was in Halifax, in fact, we got the driver simulator in from Maya simply because we had, within a couple of months, had like 4 or 5 people, and these were Council on Aging, it was police, it was everybody backing up and hitting somebody. Thankfully not humans, but another vehicle, or they were hitting a tree or a post or something like that.
So we need a policy on telling
Does it
people they
say,
can't
like, you
hit something?
can't back up?
Yes, how do you, I know it's,
Kind of back up.
you need to remind people, look, if you're gonna back up in your vehicle, please
Don't hit
follow
someone.
these.
Check
don't
your
hit-
mirrors?
Yes, check your mirrors, maybe you take a second look around your vehicle and make sure you know where you're going when you're gonna back up the vehicle. There's not another vehicle close by.
I can't wait to see you get that out to the people.
Okay, I already have actually.
You can put that in the packet with the vehicle use policy.
Yes, I
Right,
will.
right out there.
Okay,
Are we gonna have to negotiate this in the
No.
contracts?
I don't think so.
All right.
And there's no change in working conditions, you're not supposed to hit people in either case.
Right.
And that is what I have. Let me make sure, cyber awareness, Central Street, rail, ARPA, sorry. Plymouth County met, the commissioners and Treasurer Tom O'Brien met with representatives, this was online, today. So some updates on the ARPA. First, they're releasing the third trench of funding, not that it matters, because we haven't started asking for that amount, but that it will be now available. However, what they've said is, based on what conversations they've had with a number of communities, is that they are now going to be willing to allow some of that third allocation to be used for revenue replacement, which is the anything goes category. Previously, they had said, nope, we're only gonna allow you to apply for certain categories of money.
Yeah.
But now we would be able to apply. What they do want to hear, because some communities, everybody will still get this, will get that same amount they're supposed to get for the third quarter. So it's not disadvantaging or advantaging anybody. What they're saying, however, is if you wish, at the start at right now, is half of that money could be used under the revenue replacement. However, because 4 or 5 communities have already said, we're fine, we have more than enough projects that fit the categories. For instance, if we had, I think one town is, they're putting the whole money into a water project, water line project, so.
No, I'm not.
No, we're not.
I like it.
So they already know that they want to say only a certain amount of money in total across the county can be used for revenue replacement, which is that $10 million limit. And they're saying, these communities have already said, we don't need it. So what they're gonna do is reallocate, not in terms of the total, but of the $10 million, they'll reallocate it. And if we were supposed, everybody will still end up with the same amount of money, but those other 22 communities will be able to use more of it for revenue replacement and less in the categories.
Can we use it for roads?
You can, well, this is where we're getting, we'll get to that in a minute, but nobody knows the answer now to that question. Well, the technical question on that is, yes, you could use it for roads, but you can do that, because it's in the anything goes category.
I
And
haven't seen John smile like that in a long
I
time.
think John is very happy right now.
The way it was all intended originally.
So we've gone through that. We do need to tell Plymouth by the 31st of whether we would intend to use what our allocation for revenue replacement? I think the answer probably is yes. I think we have a number of projects that don't fit the county's criteria, more so than we're going to, right now, getting money from the county that would fit in the categories. But the board would officially have to vote at that on the 9th or the 23rd.
All right.
The board should also be aware, some of the third allocation of money they've now set aside for regional projects. Probably about 5% total of the whole ARPA funds. I didn't, this is the first I heard they might be trying to do something like that. So, and it's not as if anybody was knocking at my door saying, hey, let's do something with you, East Bridgewater, on a regional basis. So I have no idea what they're thinking along those lines. What it does mean is that because they're doing this sort of set aside now, is everybody's normal allocation went down slightly.
Yeah.
So we're going to end up, unless we're participating in a regional project, end up with a little less money from Plymouth than we thought we were going to a few months ago. That's true of everybody.
Was a little.
Instead of 2.7 something, 2.6 something. Okay, so we got that. All this really doesn't change the town's process. The ARPA committee still needs to be meeting, still needs to make recommendations to you all. Once they've completed that work, the board's going to be making final decisions with priorities. I think the intention is we use the county money first because it's limited in terms of the scope of what projects. Once we've used up all the county money, we're going back saying, okay, well, these are the projects we have left that didn't fit with the county money, whether they qualified or not. We're going to use our town money. And the road question came up interestingly in that what Tom and his crew there had said is the feds have now said we're going to come up with a new category that's allowed, transportation. Now, does that mean mass transit? Does that mean roads? Does that mean both? Nobody knows yet because they've not come out with the specifics, but now there will be this transportation category that would qualify. So we'll see how that comes out. They're expecting maybe the new regs this month, next month. We'll see how that comes out. That was ARPA. Sorry to belabor that point, but that meeting was just this morning.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. All right, well, thank you. That's quite a bit there. That was good. I don't think I can remember the last time we were together. It's been at least
It was last year.
Right, it was a year ago. It wasn't a year ago, but last year, yes. Board discussions. Carol, start with you.
In the interest of time, I yield my time to the clerk.
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
the kickoff
Woo-hoo!
of the 200th anniversary bicentennial for East Bridgewater. It is going to take place over at the Grace Bible Church, which is directly across the street from the Common. It starts at 6 o'clock. Hopefully it will be over around 7 o'clock. At that time, people will be invited to come back to Town Hall. We'll have parking here, parking at the church, and parking over at St. John's. Here, we're gonna set up another pop-up shop for sweatshirts and T-shirts, hats. We still have Christmas ornaments, we have candles. Upstairs, we will be having a reception. You'll notice around the room today, we have a lot of historical pictures.
Yeah, right.
We'll have a lot more of those upstairs tomorrow night. Upstairs, we will have a little buffet sandwich type deal set up by Central Cafe. We will have Batter Up, which is a local cookie company in town.
Her cookies are great.
We'll have cookies up there, and they are fantastic. We will also have a representative from Black Hat Brewery. He will be sampling a brew that will be put out.
You will not be sampling. You will be
No,
sampling.
You people will be sampling. Charlie and I are gonna be taking IDs.
Right.
Thank
To make
you.
sure. And these
I
will
can walk
be,
from
during the course of the year, and there'll be a whole lot of activities this year. Watch our Facebook, everything will be there. But we'll have cans going out to all the liquor stores, starting, I think, on Thursday.
Oh, great.
And there'll be probably, unless it's a real good buy early, there'll be different brews during the different seasons of the year, depending on, what people like and how they're reporting back to. I believe Peter's checked all of them
Yes.
out already.
Get your bicentennial beer.
And
I
so
did, I was
and it's a
there.
nice can, it has the logo on it for the bicentennial.
Is it worth more or less if you've emptied it?
Pardon?
Is it worth more or
That's
less
a
if
good
you've
Well, that
question.
depends on where you're storing it.
Okay.
Right.
Because it could explode, so we're looking forward to it. I said we have, again, keep watching the Facebook page. There are all kinds of activities coming along. My cohorts here will be talking about some of those tomorrow night.
Yep.
We don't have them all out yet because we don't have specific dates for everything, but it's a great historical year. We're even going to have fireworks during the year on June 14th, so we're looking forward to seeing everyone tomorrow night. And if it gets overcrowded there, just come over here and wait for us.
Right, great.
Start early.
And we're gonna open that time capsule in
That will be June 14th.
June.
June
Capsule that was put out here 25 years
I
ago.
put stuff in it from the library, but I can't
I
remember
don't
what
have
it
the
was.
foggiest idea what was put in there.
Right.
I'm afraid to open
I
it.
have no idea what I did.
Beer.
Facing explodes.
Perfect.
That's
Thank
it
you.
for me, Mr.
That's great.
Chairman.
The only thing I have is, Charlie, and it's kind of a question to you. So this whole snow thing came up.
Which snow thing?
The snow plows and
Yes.
moving the snow and all that stuff. I had been under the impression that the custodians were working under the DPW. So I had called John and I'm like, what's going on with these guys? Like, what can they do? And I was informed that that isn't the case. It's under they're under
Right,
the schools.
the custodian contract was changed by the school in their negotiations that the custodians report to the superintendent.
Okay. Is there a way that we could, I'd just like to see what the difference between, like, the contract they had before versus the one that they are previously in? I know they're coming up for a new one.
Not immediately, in fact, it was one of the things we talked about on
Oh, not this
Friday.
year, I thought it was this year their contract.
That was what I thought also, but when I talked to Liz and John on Friday, and none of the contracts are coming up for negotiation for fiscal '24. They'll come up in fiscal '25, and the teachers in '26, but I
So you got
believe
2 more years on that contract? They get all
the
this
year we're
and
in,
next year?
and then 1 more year for the
Oh, okay.
custodians.
Well,
But
maybe
I
then
can,
just,
but I can pull out the.
yeah, just what
current
there
year.
was before,
Yeah.
prior to that, the one that they're in
Yeah.
currently, just so we can get a better understanding, because it was confusing to me, because they do, like I said to
Right.
you, they do maintenance on the buildings, and they
Mhm.
should, I guess, and, just to kind of figure out where that alignment is,
Mhm.
because the next thing we'll be talking about is replacements of, school buildings and things of
Mhm.
that nature. And on top of that, it might have been your point, if we're gonna enter into the idea of talking about replacing or redoing central school, I'm sure there has to be something in place for the maintenance or.
Yeah, in fact, it's very specific. The school building authority will not move ahead with a project, even from the step one, unless you have a maintenance plan, not for the new school or the
Right.
renovation, but you've got to show that your current buildings, you've got a maintenance plan.
Yep.
How you handle all those aspects.
And I'm sure they do. It'd be just good if we all had a better understanding of what it was and what it is now, I think, going forward. That's it. Thank you. All right. So we're going to executive session?
No, we're
Oh,
not.
I'm
but I
sorry.
think this
Yep.
young man had-
Come on up. Just give us your name and if you're a resident or,
Yes, yes. Hi, my name's Jason Gonsalves. I'm a resident of East Bridgewater.
okay.
I own the home on 109 Willow Avenue. I presented a letter.
Look at the map again.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, I presented a letter to the planning board a few months ago about getting more consistent zoning for Willow Ave.
Okay.
Almost the entirety of Willow Ave is zoned as R3, with the exception of the 3 homes at the end of the street. They spoke about it at the planning board meeting.
Yep.
One of the neighbors, I believe, was in opposition to it, and so as a result, they said to come to the Board of Selectmen. I had called into the building department in relation to this as well. They had said that I would either need to get the petitions or the signatures, or I would need to request that one of the selectmen sponsors the, what do they call it? Sponsors
The article for
Article.
the town meeting. So,
Yeah.
there are a few possibilities for the town meeting, and the ones you've outlined are right. So, articles for town meeting under zoning,
Right.
Board of Selectmen can propose, the planning board can propose, we can get an article, we have a citizens petition, the 10 signatures of registered voters. Also, the other possibility, and I think you were in the office several weeks ago and talking to Rebecca and Lee about this, and I went back and looked afterwards. The statute also allows an article to be filed not with just 10 signatures, but by one or more residents whose property would be specifically affected by the change.
Sure.
So if you want your property to be rezoned from this type of, like, let's say an R3 to a B3, or a B3 to R3, whatever, you can propose the article even without the 10 signatures. So you don't need the planning board to propose it, you don't need the selectmen. Mind you, the selectmen could propose it, certainly, but if for some reason the selectmen said, we'd rather have you do it, or the planning board says we'd rather have you do it, you're gonna have the right to, in fact, bring an article to town meeting to make that change. Now, it would still go, I don't know if you were here when Roy Gardner, who's the planning board chair, was here earlier this
I
week.
was, and
Okay.
I actually took the opportunity to speak to him outside
So-
in relation to it.
It would still go through the hearing process with the planning board, so that we'd get the article from you, we'd send it up to the planning board would have those hearings, they'd make a recommendation, but even if they weren't recommending it, it'd still be on the warrant, and it would be up to townspeople to make that decision.
So here's my suggestion, right? So we have a track meeting, which we call every Wednesday. So that's all departments, from Board of Health to Conservation to Planning, that get together to discuss openly with, it's not a public meeting, right? So it's just,
Well,
it is a public
It's
meeting.
a public
not
meeting in the sense that the public, we don't throw the people out.
Right,
It's not
right.
an
But we don't,
official
it's
meeting.
not posted or
Yeah, 'cause
anything like that.
we don't have a quorum of the
Right,
planning board or
right.
the selectmen, right?
And it was started, I don't know, John, what, a couple years ago, we started doing the track meetings? Yeah, 18 months ago. But this is a perfect scenario for this, where someone like yourself can come in and discuss what it is that you're, hoping to achieve and the reasons for that. And then you've got everybody from, every board.
Planning board as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of us will, try to make it, or whatever the case may be. But more importantly, you're speaking to the building department, you're speaking to, like I said, Board of Health, Conservation, Planning, Zoning, all those, and you've got them all in the room. And it is more of an open discussion, without having to be in like a forum like this, where, you're trying to do something. And then from there, if it comes up favorable with them, which usually is the case, we've had really good success with this, then the next time you come or meet with Charlie or come to the board, then we've got somebody like John or Patrick Franey, our building commissioner, and they, talk to us about, you having met with them, and it's a much easier process for us to do that. So let's do this, if you don't mind. Let us get you, try to get them some dates for the
Well, I
next,
think they're-
it's got to get on the agenda.
Yeah,
They have a little agenda they do. So I think they met, when is it again?
It'd be next Wednesday, the
Yeah.
25th. No, I'm sorry, the 18th.
Eight-
During the day, right?
Yeah, it is during the day. I don't know if that's a
That's
problem.
not a problem.
Okay, so the 18th
18,
is the next meeting, yeah.
and it's at what time?
And what, at 9 o'clock? 9 o'clock.
9 a.m.
Yeah, Charlie, it seems like he's got some information from you
Well-
already that he
well,
can
yes,
pass.
no, I mean, I understood what he was trying to do, but I don't know, I think, if you want to talk with me even after the meeting, just to get a better idea of, part of Willow is in the R1 rather than in the R3. I assume what you want to do is extend the R3 along the rest of the length of Willow?
Well, I have the letter that I wrote to the planning board with the maps, and then I have a letter specifically to the board
Yeah,
of
that's
selectmen. And then I also have an iPad, so I can just pop it up quickly. But in essence, it seemed like all of Willow is R3 except for those 3 homes.
Right, for the last.
The last,
the-
108, 109, and
Well, so the
129.
far end of it, where Willow turns left,
Yes, where it turns left over.
yeah,
Right.
and then goes into R1.
Okay.
Out of the R3 district.
So I know that my neighbor at 129 expressed his reluctance. However, I spoke to my neighbors at 108 and they were in approval. So what I was wondering is, in essence, if it could just be extended up until 129, but it would still encompass both of our residences.
Yeah, ultimately it'd be up to the town to make that decision.
You get into a very hairy area there on spots, already.
Well, except that you're extending a pre-existing.
I understand that.
But I understand what you're saying too.
Yeah, and I think that the knowledge of the people that are in that room at that track meeting are gonna give you better guidance, instead of in the old days, you'd have to bump through department to department and, hope to get the right answer, but now you've got everybody in the room that could certainly help you out. So we can certainly put you on that agenda for next Wednesday morning. All Charlie has to do is just let the planning board know they usually put it
I'll
together.
make sure, if you want, you have copies of the letters for the.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that they get.
And then let's discuss it with them, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, should I give this to?
Yeah, you can give it to Charlie, and
Charlie.
like I said,
Make him sign for him.
John, you think that's a better,
Yeah, I was actually just looking at the
This
images
is the
now.
one I gave to the
I think that approach,
and then
just
here's
to
the
come
one
in
for the
and
Board of
work.
Selectmen.
So, one away and one on I, but not.
Proposal.
Okay,
Yeah.
that works.
All right, so plan on that, next
Okay.
Wednesday, 9 AM. They meet upstairs, so it's down the hall, but somebody usually guides you in there.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Listen, if you come to our meeting again,
Yep.
with this open forum, and then you don't have to
I
sit there.
wasn't
I
sure.
thought you lost a bet with somebody, and that's
No,
why
no,
you're
no.
all-
That was good though, because I got to know a little bit about, how the process works.
I thought you were being funny.
I just
No,
was
no, no,
like,
no, no.
that poor man is still.
I don't think we got a reporter to come in.
I thought you might.
I know, I did think that too. I'm like, maybe he's a reporter.
No, in the beginning, when
Channel
it
25 's
said
here.
public hearing, I lifted my hand.
Okay.
But then when
Right.
that passed and they said open forum, I was like, okay, is it kind of the same
It's open,
situation?
yeah,
So I
open
kind of just
forum.
left it until then.
Yeah. I should have pointed it out more clearly, sorry.
That's all
All
right.
right, no worries. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Ray.
you got nothing
Thank
else to
you.
do on a Monday night.
Yeah, right?
Sit here for 2.5 hours.
Football games in 20 cents if you wanna hurry up.
All right, we'll see you Wednesday, next week. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Do I need to do anything else, Ray? That's
No, you're good.
Start my car, park it.
John.
Yeah.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It says,
Yeah, we-
No, we're not doing that.
I leave that in there.
all right, I saw that. I'm like, oh, shit.
Will you second the freaking thing so we can?
Motion's been made, second, all in favor?
Ay, ay, ay.
Good night, folks.